Hey guys, Sean, Leslie Liver Dummies. Umarex Glock17 Gen5 43 caliber paintball pistol. You guys had a zillion questions how my latest video where this thing hit 11 joules. By no means is this finished, but I thought, hey, let me show you guys kind of what I've done so far, just briefly. It's not going to be an in-depth teardown. I'm just going to point and poke and do whatever. Explain kind of my thought process up to this point, where I'm going and what I'm waiting for. So first things first, pretty much everything happens in the magazine. Your air chamber's in here, your puncture pin is in here. So first thing I did was I installed that light and valve spring from Home Defense 24. I wasn't too impressed with it. I found the velocity, yeah, of course I had a higher number, but it fell on its face. Like the power pretty much was cut in half by the end of a magazine. So in a quest to make this air chamber larger, so with CO2 we're limited by temperature is one way to increase pressure, but that's not really a viable option. The other option is volume. So I needed to make this bigger inside. Well, there's not much bigger to be had. So really the first thing I did was I removed this back cap. I used my snap ring pliers to remove the valve, and I drilled using a 3/8 inch drill bit. I drilled down inside this valve, and it literally probably only shaved off 1 millimeter of material in here. But man, I can't tell you that is a very intricate process. And I tried it by hand with a cordless drill at first, and it grabbed my mag and tossed it across the room. And I thought I was done for, but luckily it only buggered up some of the threads for this valve cap. So it does still hold. After that incident, I put it in a vise and in my drill press, and it did a much nicer job. So this area, that is as large as I could go, is 3/8 of an inch, because it would start to cut into the threads, and these threads are important to retain your cap. Now, you could probably get in there with a Dremel and skip by these threads and try and work around. Me and Dremels don't get along. My hands are about as steady as, well, you get the picture. I just don't do good with little intricate things. I'm a ugga-dugga kind of guy that likes to strip bolts and strip screw heads and stuff like that. So I'm trying to be very careful with this. Next thing I did was I knocked these two pins out. There is a round side, which you may or may not be able to see. That is the side that you want to punch through like this, because the other side is serrated. And if you try to push the serrated side through, you're just going to totally bugger this up. So I knocked this out, and inside the puncture pin here, so this puncture area, there's another tube that goes up inside. So this is like an L shape here. I haven't done any work to that, but what I found was the puncture pin itself. I used a 1 millimeter drill bit, and it went through relatively easily. What I think was happening in the actual tip here was it had like slag in it and stuff. So it really just kind of pushed the drill bit through, and that hole became really nice and clean looking. But inside there, under that puncture cap, there's also this, come on, lick it and stick it. There we go. This tiny little mesh screen. Now this would be a CO2 diffuser. So object of this is, well, it keeps some grit. If you got dirty CO2, it can keep grit out of your valve area here. Oops, hands in the way. But it also kind of mitigates liquid ingestion. So liquid CO2 hits this and kind of disperses, it breaks up, and then, you know, has an easier time turning into gas. So I've removed that. And the pin just literally dropped back in, and away you go. And that is all that you saw. That's what got me to 11 joules. Since then, I kind of went out on a limb here, and I popped this mag apart again. I took that puncture pin out and I drilled through it at 1.2 millimeters. That's about as big as you'd want to go. Otherwise, you're going to start losing height of your pin, and at this point it's untested. So I may have already lost too much height. I don't know. So I've widened the actual puncture pin hole. How that will affect the marker at this point, I don't know, but we'll shoot it at the end of the video and just to see. So I was at 11. Did I pick up anything? Does it do anything at all? Worth the effort? Who knows? Things I have to do. I do plan on expanding this area inside the puncture tube here, sort of this little area here. I just haven't had the time yet this week. And like, as I said, this is kind of a very delicate procedure. This is just zinc cast. It's really soft and it doesn't take much to screw it up. And like a mag like this here in Canada, I think it's like $80. So, expensive screw up. The other thing that I'm looking at and waiting for some replacement seals, should I say? This is, if you notice this pin, it's flat on two sides. And there's a gap here and a gap here in this valve cap. That is your blowback gas. That's where it escapes. It's funneled by this concave back of this backing plate here. So this is the factory like kind of seal. Goes on here, fits over, and inside your upper slide, right in the back here where the firing pin is another. These aren't, this is from an FSC. This is a CO2 seal, but when these two meet up like this, the CO2 escapes and blows back against this seal, which blows your slide back. That's your blowback action. With the mods that I've done to this already, this thing was blowing back hard, like way too hard. So I have opened the slide up here. So I knocked this pin out here, pulled the slide off, and I shimmed the spring in here. I don't know what you call it, your recoil spring or your blowback spring. I shimmed it with something I had laying around. It's just a 3/16 vinyl grommet. I'm going to source a better spacer. I think like a hard rubber or, you know, just a aluminum spacer would probably do better, but this is just what I had. So it's a trial and error thing at this point. So I jam that inside here, put the spring back in, put the slide back in, and it made a noticeable difference. And when I did fire this, it definitely was blowing back a lot softer. I also was on the hunt so I didn't want to open this yet, but essentially I had to. Back to this seal in the back here. So gas escapes to blow your slide back right around the outside of this pin. This seal is kind of loosey-goosey on here. My idea is to find a suitable replacement that fits more snugly on this pin, so it sort of blocks more of that blowback gas, And I'm hoping in doing so is actually gonna send more gas out the front. I have experimented with some O-rings and stuff I had here, none of which really worked. What I did find though, and that's why this 3/16 grommet ended up inside here, is, well, I cut one in half and it literally worked as a factory replacement to this piece. So if this seal gets buggered up, a 3/16 vinyl grommet, I got this at, you know, in Canada, it's a Lordco auto parts store. I cut the grommet in half and I used like sort of the long side, I guess you could call it. And it fits perfectly in there. And it fits back on there. And look at that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's up right now because the screw's not in there. Worked well. But again, that's not what I'm trying to do. It was find a factory replacement. I'm trying to find a replacement that's going to be tighter on there. I'm not sure what other options I have to try and block this blowback action. I don't know. I suppose I could try and JB weld. We need the blowback action. Don't get me wrong, but I don't need so much of it. So if I could cut blowback action or gas here, I probably wouldn't need the shim here. But I haven't gotten that far yet. So I'm waiting on some different, I got some silicone like T grommets that I'm gonna try. And in my quest, while I was kind of searching for this solution here, I did find some that were too tight. And what had happened when the firing pin whacked this, it just bound up and essentially blew all the gas down the barrel. So there's gonna be a little bit of fiddling to try and get that right, if at all. Pending I can't block any blowback action, shimming this return spring here, recoil spring, is probably gonna be the only option. But I mean, we're wasting a lot of energy out the back, so we wanted to go forward. I took measurements of the hammer spring while I was in here, so I have gone ahead and ordered some stronger hammer springs to try. They're probably gonna be 2-3 weeks out, but in the meantime, I will be working on expanding this area here, seeing as how this area is pretty much done. You can't make it any larger. At least I'm not comfortable with the Dremel making it any larger than I could with a 3/8 inch drill bit. This area here though, it's fair game. I just got to get in there, pull this apart again, and get going on it. That's all I got for now. Hoping that this turns into a worthwhile project. I should mention that hard blowback this was actually creating after those modifications. When I took this slide off, there's these little notches here that it locks into that prevents you just from kind of lifting it off. You got to pull all the way back and up. They had already taken quite a bit of damage just from the blowback action of this in its modified form. I'm sure the little chips, when I took this off, the little aluminum shavings came out. I'm sure in paintball form, it probably doesn't do that. So if you're going to mod your mag, I would suggest shimming your spring sooner than later before maybe you shear one of those little ears, I guess we'll call them, right off. Because once those are damaged, the slide's just gonna wanna come off every time you're firing. So I would shim this immediately. It may even work on a stock marker, I don't know. But it is noticeably stiffer anyways. So I'm hoping that'll help this live a little bit longer, long enough that I can sort through some issues. That's all I got today. Let's see if drilling that puncture pin did anything. And oh yeah, along with the hammer springs I ordered some 11mm glass balls. I'm very curious as to how those will do and their exact weight. As you know, I've been shooting steel ball bearings. They're 5.4 grams. I've had my best results on them. But I think that I think they might be a little bit heavy for this. Now, that remains to be seen. So let's air this guy up, see if it did anything. Can I top my 210 feet per second number?
All right, so I'm about to get ready to put this 12 gram CO2 in, and I'm hearing this leaking noise. I'm wondering, what the heck is that coming from? So I had this can of wasp spray on the shelf here that just really just sprung a leak. Freaking me out. Okay, well, here we go. So, a little drop of lube on there. CO2 in. Oh yeah, I gotta open this up. Wind up this little adjuster here. And crack it. Uh-oh. Now I got 2 leaks. Hear that? Yeah, I got a slight leak. So maybe drilling 1.2 millimeters in the puncture pin is not a good idea. We'll see if that just stops on its own. Steel ball bearings. Ooh. It really made a nice pop when it punctured, but well, them the brakes. .208. Pretty tough to say if there was an improvement because I had a leak, and unfortunately that puncture seal there is part of the chamber, so a leak there could definitely diminish my FPS, but 208 from where I was the last time, 210, at least it means it's consistent. Let's check that again. Nope, still leaking. Better move faster. 202. 192. 178. 170. There's one thing I don't know if you guys pick up on. When I shoot the steel ball bearings, the marker doesn't lock back on the last shot. It locks back on the next dry fire. That only happens with these heavy steel balls. With the aluminum alien plays and the Umarex QAB, it locks back like it should on the last shot. So I don't know if that has to do with the weight or the actual size of the projectile, because the alien plate and the QAB are smaller diameter than the steel balls. But I'll know more when my glass balls arrive, whether it's size or weight. That's what she said. Anyways, guys, that's where I'm at so far. Obviously, I'm gonna have to contend with this leak here and see, maybe I didn't put the puncture or the pin flat in there again. I don't know. I'll have to pull it apart and look, but it's definitely got a leak. So don't drill it to 1.2 millimeters. 1 millimeter, just run the 1 millimeter bit through there, clean out all the junk, and it sharpens that edge up a little bit. That's how I tested originally, with no leaks. So next time.